You know that feeling, right? You open a brand new app, you're just trying to find a really simple setting or maybe make a quick purchase, and within 30 seconds, you are completely, hopelessly lost. We've absolutely all been there. You're tapping around aimlessly, the menus make zero sense, and your frustration levels are just going through the roof. Well, welcome to episode 6 of our Explainer series. Today, we're diving deep into information architecture and user flows. We're going to be mapping the user's journey through an app to show exactly what goes wrong in app development. Because honestly, the truth is, when you get lost in an app, it's really not your fault. It's a failure of digital architecture. Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty shocking data point. According to industry data, the median app loses roughly 77% of its daily active users within just the first 3 days of installation. I mean, think about that for a second. You spend all this time and money getting someone to download your app, and boom, they're gone. Why? Well, it's because good design isn't just about beautiful colors or really fancy animations. It is this critical, invisible architecture that actually saves your app from total abandonment. If your structure is weak, your users get anxious, they can't find what they need, and they simply bounce. So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First up, the foundation, which is information architecture. Second, we'll look at the macro view with user journeys. Third, we zoom in for the micro details of user flows. Fourth, we've got a little showdown between IA and flows. And finally, tracking reality. Let's get into it. Starting off with Section 1, the foundation, information architecture. Imagine you're walking into a massive brand new building. The very first thing you do is look for a directory, right? Well, information architecture, or IA for short, is exactly that. It's the fundamental floor plan of your digital building. Formally, it's defined as the art and science of organizing, structuring, and labeling content to support findability and usability. Long before a single pixel is placed by a designer, someone has to sit down and decide exactly what content exists, where it's going to live, and what it's even called. Without this structural skeleton, a digital interface wouldn't just be a little confusing, it would literally be pure, unnavigable chaos. So to make this a bit more concrete, there are 4 main pillars of information architecture that all work together to ensure a user always knows exactly where they are. First up, you have organization. This is how your content is grouped. Are we talking about a strict hierarchy, or is it a step-by-step sequence? Second is labeling, which is really just about using the right words. A button that says contact, for instance, is a label that instantly tells you what to expect. Third, we have navigation. These are your global menus, local links, breadcrumbs, basically the actual roads of your digital space. And fourth, searching. Because let's face it, once a product has enough content, simply browsing just doesn't cut it anymore, and users absolutely need a smart search bar to jump straight to their exact destination. And all of this brilliantly illustrates why that structural work is so incredibly vital. As the knowledge management author Peter Morville so famously put it, findability precedes usability. You can't use what you can't find. It really doesn't matter if your checkout button has the most perfect drop shadow and gradient in the world. If your user can't navigate to their cart in the first place, your app has failed. Moving right along to Section 2, the macro, app user journeys. Now that we've got our structural blueprint mapped out, we need to look at the human element here, the holistic, overall path a user actually takes across time. Now, this journey generally plays out chronologically. It kicks off at day 0 with awareness, so maybe they spot your app in the App Store. Day 1 is acquisition, where they finally install and open it up. Then we hit week 1, which is exploration. They're poking around, trying out your core features. By week 2, you might start seeing monetization, where maybe they hit a paywall and actually decide to subscribe. And by month 1, you're looking at retention. Are they actually coming back? Each one of these macro stages requires totally different touch points and key performance indicators. But man, here's a major pitfall that so many teams fall right into when they're mapping these journeys. They'll invent a persona like, okay, this is Sarah, she's 32, a marketing manager who loves brunch. Which is great and all, but that tells you absolutely nothing about whether Sarah will actually finish your onboarding sequence. To map a journey accurately, your personas have to be grounded in real behavioral segments. You really need to look at what users actually do inside the app, like focusing on users who hit the paywall twice but didn't buy, rather than just making demographic guesses. And that brings us to Section 3, the micro, user flows. All right, let's zoom all the way in now. What actually happens when a user is sitting there holding their phone trying to accomplish one very specific thing? This is the user flow. It's a set of specific interactions describing the exact steps needed to accomplish a common task. Think about it this way. If the journey is this grand, month-long story of a user's entire relationship with your brand, the user flow is the hyper-specific step-by-step guidance system for completing a single objective in just a matter of minutes.
Honestly, you interact with user flows every single day without even realizing it. The classic examples would be those onboarding sequences when you first open a brand new app, or the checkout processes when you're buying a new pair of shoes online, or even those multi-step forms when you're signing up for a new service. Streamlining these user flows is absolutely critical. By minimizing the number of steps, you dramatically reduce friction, you keep your users engaged, and you ensure they actually finish the task instead of just throwing their hands up and quitting halfway through.
On to Section 4, the showdown, IA versus user flows. Now, these two concepts constantly get mixed up in the industry, so let's just set up a direct side-by-side comparison to clear things up. Information architecture focuses heavily on the organizing structure of the digital interface, and the output is usually going to be a sitemap or a wireframe. Think of it as the map of the territory. User flows, on the other hand, focus on mapping the specific interactions a user takes, and the output for that is a flowchart or a user journey map. So IA is the core structure. User flows guide the user through that structure to complete their goal. They are definitely different, but they desperately need each other to actually work.
Finally, we hit Section 5, tracking the real experience.
Okay, it is time for the ultimate reality check, because there is a massive, and I mean massive, difference between the pristine, perfect journey you design in a meeting room and the messy, highly unpredictable journey users actually take out in the real world. When teams sit in a workshop and confidently draw a user journey on a whiteboard, it is almost always wrong. It reflects this happy path that the team intends for the user to take. But actual users, they take a path filled with dead ends, confusing loops, and weird improvisations. They'll skip your formal onboarding entirely, they'll hit the back button right in the middle of forms, and they will inevitably get stuck on empty screens.
And the stakes we're talking about here are incredibly high. Just look at this number, 70%. That is the average shopping cart abandonment rate in e-commerce. 70% of people who put something in a digital cart will leave without paying. When your intended user flow breaks down in the real world, it doesn't just result in a slightly annoyed user or a bad review, it literally tanks your revenue and destroys your retention. So how on earth do we fix this and actually match our digital architecture to reality? Well, one super powerful method is called card sorting. This is a brilliant user experience research method where you present users with completely unsorted cards that represent the different pages or topics in your app. Then you literally sit back and watch how the users themselves group those topics together based on what logically makes sense to them. Doing this ensures you're actually creating an information architecture that matches the user's mental model rather than just forcing the developer's internal logic onto them.
But I gotta say, the absolute best way to track reality is by watching session replays. This is literally watching a playback of how real, anonymous users are navigating your app in the wild. And it is eye-opening. It exposes hidden friction that a multiple-choice survey is just never gonna catch. For example, session replays can reveal what we call rage taps. That's when a user is just repeatedly tapping their screen in total frustration because they think a picture is a button, but it's not actually interactive. Finding and fixing these little micro-frictions ground your map in absolute reality. Which leaves us with this final, absolutely crucial question to think about. Is your app a seamless architectural masterpiece, or are your users currently wandering lost in a digital maze? As we've seen today, a beautiful interface simply cannot save a broken structure. So I challenge you, go evaluate your own app's user flows and information architecture. Track the real experience, watch out for those dreaded rage taps, and start building digital spaces that people actually love to navigate. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.